So here we are, a month or so on from the chaos of the first day of Dáil Éireann, and we're right back where we started, with the government pulling an outrageous fast one. If you missed my last video, you should probably go and watch it now to familiarise yourself with the situation surrounding the speaking rights nonsense before continuing with this one, because I'm going to assume you all know the score. Suffice it to say, serious questions need to be asked as to what hold real Taoiseach Michael Lowry has on his puppet Taoiseach Micheál Martin and puppet Tánaiste Simon Harris, that they would abandon all pretense of upholding democracy with this absolute disgrace of a situation. So in case you missed it, government have pushed through a proposal that will allow not only Michael Lowry and his lackies Dáil speaking time, but will also give other government backbenchers from Fianna Fáil and Gael the same speaking opportunities. Oh, and they are proposing to reduce leaders' questions from 2 days down to 1. That bit seems to get missed in all the noise. Now, you've probably heard the government downplaying this and trying to minimise the issue by saying that this is extra time being allowed and it won't eat into opposition speaking time, despite the document apparently proposing to reduce leaders' questions from 2 days to 1, as I just said, and no rebuttal from Micheál Martin when that reduction was brought up by multiple members of the opposition. Indeed, Government Chief Whip Mary Butler was keen to downplay it all when she said, "The proposals agreed will ensure that all backbench TDs in Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael and those independents not recognised under Standing Order 170 will be able to access speaking time. Under the government proposal, there won't be any reduction in opposition speaking time." Now, if they are indeed trying to reduce the number of days for leaders' questions, then this statement by Mary Butler is a blatant lie, and it also deliberately obfuscates the point entirely. This is purely about facilitating Michael Lowry and his grouping to play pantomime and pretend they are holding government to account, all while actually supporting them on everything and making sure their respective constituents can see them. It's that simple. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, well, if like government claim it's not eating into opposition speaking time, then what's the harm? Well, the harm is very simple. Leaders' questions is supposed to be where opposition hold government to account, not for government lickspittles to publicly ask softball questions just to show off to their constituencies that they're actually doing something in order to gain some brownie points with them. And it raises a serious question. Let's pretend for a second that this is not about appeasing Michael Lowry. Let's pretend for a second that their reasoning is solely and genuinely to help their backbenchers get question time with the government leaders. I mean, it's what a senior Fine Gael source said after all. They said, "The most unheard voice in the Dáil is the government backbencher." Ah, Jesus, the poor f***ers, where's me violin? Sorry, I'm meant to be pretending to believe them, haven't I? Anyway, then we had Emer Passport Express Higgins backing up this idea while sucking up to Simon Harris.
I'm really pleased that we have in Simon Harris a leader who's listening to our backbenchers who say, well, like, for example, I was elected at that point in Dublin Midwest 4-seater constituency. It was me and 3 opposition TDs. So those 3 TDs got to raise the same issues as me in my constituency, whether it was transport or ghost buses or whatever it may have been, education, the need for building skills. They got the opportunity to raise that much more than me in the Dáil. Yes, of course I could talk to the ministers in the same way anyone can, but being able to say it in the House of Parliament and having it on record, being able to go back and forth, not just 1 minute where you talk to the Taoiseach and he gives you a 1-minute reply, but an actual exchange. Like, they've the same democratic right as opposition TDs.
I think
Now, as a side note, before I continue, I genuinely can't understand why Fine Gael keep letting Emer Higgins on air. I really can't. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's very entertaining watching her constantly put her foot in it and prove the opposite point she was trying to make.
That this issue of speaking time did not
Yes.
come up in
Yes.
any programme.
So separate question. Is there an agreement with Lowry that Lowry needs to vote with the government over the course of this term?
My understanding is that a number of people have signed up to the programme for government.
And he's one of them.
Absolutely. And in the same way as...
He is denying that. He is saying he sent...
But but surely someone in Fine Gael can see how disastrous she is for them. I just don't get it. Right, so that clip right there explains why the poor backbencher issue is a load of absolute bollocks. Yes, of course I could talk to the ministers in the same way anyone can. No, let me stop you right there. You, Emer, you have far more access to your ministers than we ordinary proles do. Not just 1 minute where you talk to the Taoiseach. Do you have any idea how many people in this country, especially those advocates for people with disabilities, children and carers and the likes, would absolutely love the opportunity to talk to the Taoiseach for even just 1 minute? You have access far and above what ordinary people have. The only issue for Emer and all the backbenchers agreeing with her is that they don't get the visibility and brownie points of raising issues. That's it. And that's a load of nonsense. The very fact that she says that in her constituency she was the only government TD and the other 3 were opposition should tell her that her own government is failing her constituency, and by extension she is failing her constituency by being utterly useless in focusing her government's attention to the issues. The role of backbenchers is to not only raise these issues with the higher-ups in government, but to actually act on the issues. You know, actually fix the bloody issues. Getting those issues sorted is the reward. That's the visibility. Because opposition TDs can't force the issues to be resolved. They can only raise them. So maybe backbenchers should stop whinging and actually work for their constituents. Actions speak louder than words after all. And if backbenchers are genuinely saying that this is not just about the good PR from being seen to raise these issues, that no, it's actually more than that. It's that they need this speaking time in the Dáil to raise these issues because they can't otherwise raise them, then that in itself raises serious questions about the parliamentary processes within Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael that their own backbenchers feel ignored and useless. It doesn't sound like they are well-functioning parties now, does it? So Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael would once again rather look incompetent than admit the truth that this whole nonsense has nothing whatsoever to do with the poor backbenchers and instead has everything to do with placating Michael Lowry. And so we move on to the backlash from the opposition. The opposition is united on this issue and they are refusing to back down. And before I go further, I'd like to point out something that I haven't really seen mentioned anywhere else. This is not about right wing or left wing. This transcends that. And that can be seen by not just the left wing parties staunchly opposing this shite, but also right wing grouping Independent Ireland. Their leader, Michael Collins, stood side by side with Mary Lou MacDonald and other party leaders to lambast this nonsense. That right there should explain how serious this is, considering Michael Collins himself said that his party is a comfortable alternative to Sinn Féin. This is not about right or left, it's about a true subversion of democracy, and that is why the opposition is united. And the opposition is quite right. Lowry and his grouping are not unaligned or any other nonsense term they want to come up with. They're not Schrodinger's TDs. They have very clearly and formally agreed a programme for government and are in government. If you don't believe me, watch this clip from the Irish Times. I've shown it before, but it bears repeating as it clearly shows the intentions of Lowry's regional independent group.
I'm delighted that our group has been recognised in a very tangible way and in a practical way. And at the outset, I stated clearly that we would function as a group, that we would act as a group, that we would negotiate as a group. And as part of that negotiations, we also said that we had to be working within government, not from the outside. And for us, obviously, it's important that we're able to ensure that our parts of the programme that are important to us are implemented over the lifetime, over the 5 years of this government. We're in this for 5 years, we're in it to deliver 5 budgets. We're a strong, we're a cohesive, we're a united group, and we intend to deliver for the people of Ireland on the issues that are important.
Now, if you can watch that clip and still say that Lowry and the rest are in opposition, you are lying to yourself. This is not some nod and wink arrangement whereby they'll generally support the government while getting a quid pro quo that suits them. This is a formal agreement whereby they will support the government from the inside for 5 budgets on the good days and the bad days. And again, this is not like the Confidence and Supply Agreement of 2016, whereby Fianna Fáil abstained on confidence and supply votes, but reserved the right to vote for or against any bill proposed in the Dáil or Seanad. This is full support, and if Micheál Martin wants to continue comparing this to the Tony Gregory deal, then publish the full agreement and let us see for ourselves. Once again, they are in government. It really is that simple, and they want speaking rights to pretend that they're not in government. So on to the backlash. Well, the knock-on effects of this row is that Oireachtas committees can't be formed, as it all depends on the number of technical groups there are before seats can be allocated, and opposition will refuse to cooperate on this matter for as long as government try to give Lowry and co. special treatment. Other than that, the very first thing that the opposition did in the wake of that vote was to back out of the pairing arrangement for Dáil votes. Simon Harris is already throwing his toys out of his pram over this one by accusing opposition of being utterly childish and of blocking ministers from travelling abroad. Well, maybe, Simon, you should grow a backbone and stop bowing down to Michael Lowry and end this. And as far as opposition are concerned, nothing is off the table, including a possible combined walkout. Now, it remains to be seen what else they may have planned, but it seems clear that they will not take this lying down and are a united front. As Jennifer Whitmore of the Social Democrats said on This Week in Politics, it's not just about this Dáil, it's about the next Dáil and the Dáil after that. Now, obviously, government lickspittles and sympathisers will downplay all of this and claim that the opposition are overreacting and making a big deal out of nothing. So to those who agree with that sentiment, let me ask you something. If the shoe was on the other foot, and this was Sinn Féin, for example, trying to push this bollocks through, would you still think the same? Because that's the barometer here. If it's okay for Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael to do this, to about with speaking rights in Dáil Éireann, then it has to be okay for Sinn Féin and others to pull the same type of shite if they were in power. So honest answers only. Would you be okay with Sinn Féin doing the same? Now, I'm not a betting woman, but even I would bet the farm that if this were the other way around, the collective news media would be in a frenzy with hit pieces and endless column inches devoted to how dastardly Sinn Féin can't be trusted and how they are attacking the very fabric of democracy. Yet the majority of what I'm seeing is just recording of what happened, with the odd column minimising the whole thing. Go figure. Now, one argument I've seen quite a few times against the opposition stance on this is that they are taking a stand over the wrong thing, that they should be doing this for all the other issues that actually matter, and that while they are devoting their time to this issue, they are neglecting the other more important issues of the day. And to that I say, do you understand the terms majority and minority and how they relate to how governments work? Look, whether you or I like it or not, Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael were voted back in such numbers that their return to power was academic. Enough people in this country voted for them to continue on. Personally, I find it disgusting that the gullible and not so gullible May Feiners and I'm alright jackasses voted them back in considering the state of the country. But ultimately, enough people were happy with FFG. So what do we expect opposition to do exactly? Because I feel that many don't seem to understand just what the role of opposition actually is and what they can and cannot do. The opposition cannot stop anything the government want pushed through, unless perhaps there's a question over whether it's constitutional or not, because the opposition are in the minority. All they can do is vote against it and hope that there are some defectors. The main role of opposition is to hold the government of the day to account in the court of public opinion. All they can realistically do is heap as much pressure on government as possible while pointing out their many and varied failures and offering an alternative in the hopes that come election time they've done enough to convince people to vote for them. And that's it. They cannot stop a majority government from doing what it wants on policy. Why? Because that's democracy. The government, whether we agree with their policies or not, are the majority and as such have been given a mandate from the people to enact the policies they campaigned on. If opposition were to basically shut down the Dáil like they did on the first day of this Dáil term over policy, well, they'd rightly be excoriated for being undemocratic and going against the will of the people. Because whether you agree with them or not, the government of the day is the will of the people. The people voted for them. We, the people of this country, voted for FFG. We voted for them to continue on. We, the people of this country, looked at what FFG have achieved in health, housing, disability supports, child supports, immigration, the cost of living, and every other bloody issue and policy in this country, and said, yeah, grand, keep going. That's the reality of what happened. I certainly don't like it, but it is what it is. They won. The opposition were unable to form a government. They do not represent the majority of the electorate. If they did, they would have formed a government. As I said, all opposition can actually do in the course of a Dáil term is hold a government to account in the court of public opinion and hope they sway enough people to vote for them next time round. That's it. However, with this speaking rights issue, they are not going against policy. This is not a policy. This is not right wing or left wing. This is about the very basis of democracy and accountability. The opposition are uniting against a subversion of democracy. They are uniting against the sitting government throwing democratic accountability out the window just to satisfy their kingmaker, with the happy bonus of a diluted opposition at worst and a less visible and less heard opposition at best. It's a win-win for them if they push this through, and that's why this row is so important. This started as FFG bowing down to appease Michael Lowry. It has transformed into something altogether more insidious. It has become yet another card in the already stacked deck FFG have created to keep them in power. And that should be worrying to absolutely everyone who values fairness and democracy. And that is why it is so important for the opposition to stick to their guns and win this one. So what do you think? Whose side are you on in this speaking rights row? Do you think TDs should be able to be in neither government nor opposition? Do you think the opposition should take the hit and move on? Or do you think they should keep fighting against this absolute nonsense? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe and hit that bell icon to be notified of new content. If you want to support the channel, you can buy me a coffee or a super thanks, which is greatly appreciated, and a huge thank you to those of you that already have. You can also follow me on Twitter. Until next time, slán go fóill.